drawings and things like that in your books is because you never know what kind of things people are sensitive to. But anyway.
Trigger warning. This is a book.
Trigger warning. It's a book. Afraid of books. Yeah, in that case, I can't help you. All right, so we are going to be talking about A, the differences between psychopaths and sociopaths, and B, how you can write them better. Because obviously, lots and lots of villains tend to be sociopaths and psychopaths, and it's mainly because they have a lot of qualities that make it more easy for them to commit crime without feeling bad about it. So, as a result, they tend to make great villains. Most villains are somewhere on that spectrum. They land somewhere. For example, we're actually going to talk about a few and talk about where you think they land on the spectrum, if at all. And if they don't, why you think they don't. But as I just mentioned before the video started, about as high as they're not sure, it can fluctuate from year to year. But according to statistics, anywhere from 2 to 4% of the population at any given time is somewhere on the psychopath/sociopath spectrum. So, you're more than likely to have met at least one in your life, even if they're not high on the spectrum. And it's and like I said, it is very much a spectrum. So some people might only have a few like tendencies, not even on the spectrum, just tendencies. You really do need all of these traits though to be full on diagnosable. If you only have a few of these traits, you're probably just an awkward human.
Wow.
Whereas if you have all of these traits, then it's like, okay, you might need to see a therapist. True, I think everyone needs a therapist, but if you're a psychopath or a sociopath, you definitely need one. So, there's kind of, and then there's you need a therapist in all caps. So, first thing we're going to talk about is psychopaths. So, with psychopaths, almost all psychopaths are born this way biologically. It is a brain defect. It is not something they can fix. This is not something that you can just poof make all better. They are cold, calculating manipulators with no conscience and no guilt. They physically cannot feel it. The part of the brain that is supposed to make you feel bad for things, they don't have it.
Oh, that reminds me of this. So, I was watching like the Big Hero 6 series for some reason because it's good, okay? And the main villain, when he was younger, he was doing this he made this thing and it blew up and then it damaged the part of his brain that can tell the difference between right and wrong and stuff.
And see, in that case, he'd actually be a sociopath. Because sociopaths are something that happens to you due to trauma.
Oh.
So, but anyway, so psychopaths are born this way. From the second they come out of the womb, they cannot feel guilt. Moving forward, though, superficially they might seem charming. They tend to put on a mask of some personality that's wanting to please people. The reason why is because they realize that you get more in life with honey than vinegar. That kind of old phrase where it's like, hey, if you want to make someone like you, give them honey. Don't splash their face with vinegar. And so, with that being said, they do the same thing. They watch people and they kind of, much like many other neurodivergents, they mask. Highly masking, except they're much better at masking than 90% of the population. Yes.
I can definitely attest that, especially with autism.
Yeah.
It's definitely masking is a big part.
It's a big part of it, yeah. And so with psychopaths, they just mask to an even higher degree. They seem like a perfectly normal individual. It is pretty exhausting, which is often why if you see a psychopath in a book or a movie, they'll have some sort of moment where they get home and they're by themselves and they're like, because it is quite exhausting. That being said, they are also highly manipulative, which is part of why they like to mask, is because they get their way better if they're able to be like, hey, I am this very charming person, therefore you like me, therefore you owe me, therefore I can use you. They're often dishonest, and when I say dishonest, I don't just mean to get their way, I mean in pretty much any way possible. They lie about even the smallest things that have absolutely no value. They just want to lie. They enjoy it. They are also unable to form any sort of genuine attachments. All attachments are just something that they wonder, how can I get something out of this? It is a tool, not a person to them. Next thing is they're very calm under pressure. They're super calm, almost eerily calm, to the point where you're like, bro, are you okay? And the answer is no. They tend to be very good liars and will lie almost about anything just for funsies. um, they tend to have to be in control. Not all of them express this tendency, but most of them can express this tendency where they like being in control. As a result, they may express some OCD type tendencies purely because of the fact that they like being in control so much to the point where they want control over everything in their environment and their life.
I see. Dylan wants to rule the world.
Exactly. Precisely. They also have a very high sense of self-importance. They tend to believe that they are the best person in the room, whether or not they are the best person in the room. They tend to believe they are the smartest, the greatest, the beautifulest, the handsomest, whatever. Fill in the blank. They think they are the best.
What if it's somebody that's not at all athletic, and they think that they are athletic?
I wouldn't necessarily say that. It's more just the fact that their ego makes it so they're like, if I wanted to be athletic, I could, and I would totally beat you. But I choose not to because I'm better than you. Okay. So it's less about the fact that they think they're good at everything and more just that they believe that anything they try will succeed.
I see. Because they're just that good. What if they don't succeed? How do they handle that?
That's a great question. Most of the time, because they like to be in control, they find some other way of being in control of the situation, whether it's through media presence or whether it's through simply just saying, oh, I didn't try hard enough, because they like to lie. And so they'll say something like, I didn't train as hard as I should have, and that's why I lost. Like, if I tried, they wouldn't have won, kind of thing. Okay. So it's more just about keeping the ruse up that they are this amazing. The last thing is they will pretend to understand people and care about people and their emotions, but they actually don't. This is typically where they get caught, where they'll be like, oh my gosh, I care so much about you, and then the person's like, really, you mean it? And they're like, not actually, but like, yeah, sure. They'll obviously they won't say that, but they'll think it in their head, and they'll do things like give people gifts and whatnot, but then they'll not really actually care when they're like, I need a hug, and it's like, no thanks, but I'll buy you a puppy. Like,
I'll take the puppy.
So like, they don't actually care about you in the way you wanted to be cared about. They just care about you to the point where they can use you, and then they dump you.
Well, that's depression.
Yep. So, moving on. Sociopaths are actually way more common than psychopaths, purely because of the fact that sociopaths are made, not born. Now, granted, is everyone who's traumatized going to become a sociopath? No. You do have to have a kind of predisposition for it, or it has to be so traumatizing that there's just no way anyone could get out of this sane. So those are your kind of two options. Is you can either have trauma that they were just kind of predisposed to kind of warp, or you can go the other direction where literally no one would survive that.
What if your entire clan is murdered by your older brother?
I would say that's pretty traumatizing.
Okay, I was just wondering about
yeah, I would say that's pretty dang traumatizing. I would say most people would not come out of that decently sane.
I don't really think he's that sane, so I think it's fine.
But yeah, all right, next thing. These guys, unlike psychopaths, are often very, very erratic and incredibly impulsive. Whereas a psychopath might be like, oh, I'm going to kiss her in order to manipulate her. A sociopath is like, I'm going to kiss her because I want to. Like, impulse. They have very little impulse control and are incredibly erratic. The tiniest thing will set them off, too. So as a result, they are the type of person that you're like, you are a 24-year-old person having a 3-year-old level tantrum because you didn't get a cookie. Like, you look at them and you're like, what is happening here? Like, you are better than this. So the tiniest thing tends to send them out just absolutely into a flying rage. They also struggle to form attachments, which is why they get confused between sociopaths and psychopaths. They struggle to form attachments. However, with this, they can form attachments. They just tend to be very shallow because of the fact that sociopaths want to get their way. And so as a result, whereas a psychopath wants to get their way, therefore they use you, a sociopath wants to get their way, and therefore they'll see every little fault in their relationship with you and will drop you just because you pissed them off. Whereas a psychopath would be like, yeah, they pissed me off, but like, who cares? I
My
can use
friends
them.
make me angry all the time.
So, yeah. With that being said, they don't actually bother to put on a mask. Unlike a psychopath, where a psychopath will attempt to have some sort of social norm, sociopaths will not. They don't care what you think of them when they're throwing a 3-year-old level tantrum. They just care that you do what they asked.
Nice thing about you said if they don't care if you threw a 3-year-old.
I mean, yeah, they probably don't care about that either. They'll watch you throw the 3-year-old and be like, "Go, bro!" Like, like, yeah, they really don't care about social norms. If you think, "Oh, why are they being so weird?" And they're like throwing a tantrum for no reason, it's because they literally could not care less about your opinion of them. Whereas a psychopath
weird.
cares a ton about your opinion of them. Why? Because they want to be able to use you, and the best way to use you is to have you like them. Whereas a sociopath is just like, dude, you should love me for me, even if I literally broke all of your stuff. So, yeah. um, that being said, they tend to often be very over dramatic about everything. So even if it's just
Like Anne of Green Gables.
not necessarily. I can see why you say that, but not necessarily. When I say over dramatic, I mean things like where I say, "Hey, you didn't do very well on that test. Would you like to have help studying next time?" And they're like, "Well, maybe if you'd help me study in the first place." And it's like, okay, like,
Wow, okay.
so it's more over dramatic in the regard that anything you say will be held against you.
No, I have the right to a lawyer.
But yes,
Can't do this.
they tend to be very, very reckless. That's why if you see some sort of murder mystery novel or book or movie, and you're reading along, and the person seems to just make a massive mistake that you're like, whoa, that was super dumb, it's because of the fact that they're probably a sociopath. And sociopaths don't really think through their actions. That's part of the reason why they're so dramatic, and part of the reason why they go off at the drop of a hat is because their defense mechanism is just pure rage. They don't think about the consequences. They don't think about consequences. And so, for example, if they see someone and they kill them, they're just like, okay, whatever.
So is Azula
Oh,
be considered a
absolutely,
sociopath or
Uh,
psychopath?
I would say the problem with Azula is that she seems like she was born, which would lean me towards psychopath. But then
she
she's
has more
very
sociopath.
erratic and impulsive. So I would say she's a sociopath, and that the trauma that set her off was more the fact that she wanted so much to her father that it actually made her mother love her less. And so as a result, she was like, my mom doesn't love me, so why should anyone care? As long as my dad's proud of me, I don't care.
Well, okay.
So I would say she fits. I would say it seems like she's a psychopath, and that's why it's hard to tell. But I would say yes, the trauma of her mom not loving her. That they even talk about that on the Fire Island, where they were like, I mean, she was right, you know, but but it still hurt, and the fact that she says it still hurts also indicates that, because the fact, unlike psychopaths, actually can feel small amounts of guilt and hurt, and so the fact that she admits to feeling hurt and admits to that issue with her mom, I think says that that is her trauma and that that is what made her a sociopath, unfortunately. But yeah, so good. That was an excellent question. Great example of why they're super confusing. So they often lash out at those who remind them of their trauma too. This is often where you get serial killers. Mainly because of the fact that they're like, oh, this girl who bullied me to the point of like wanting to like end my life, it was, you know, Asian or whatever, and so they want to kill all Asian girls or things like that. Like, yeah,
Genocide.
people have issues. That is why we're talking about it, is because people have issues, and we need to create good villains, and villains tend to have issues. So, yes, did you have a question, Rhea?
I was just wondering,
Excuse-
could a sociopath
Mhm.
like still feel but not be like as erratic? Like they
Um,
still have their moments, but they're able to like keep it more calm.
Not really. In that case, I would say you'd probably want to do the psychopath basis, just because of the fact that sociopaths really are erratic and over the top all the time. So if you want someone who is calmer, you want a psychopath for your
Okay,
villain.
but psychopaths don't really feel anything.
They don't really feel anything, no, but they can act like they feel things. And that's the beauty of a psychopath, if you're having them as the villain, is that you can have them seem like they are sobbing with this person and that they care, but in reality, every single tear is made up.
Okay, is it possible, like, something could trigger it? Like, it kind of like, trying to think of
Yeah,
the
go.
right
That's okay.
word.
Go for it. Think about it.
Because I have, because I have a feeling that I want to have emotions as a child, but then something triggers it and emotions are just turned off.
In that case, it would be similar to that, where she mentioned the fact that some sort of head trauma or something like that, they would still technically be considered a they would be considered a psychopath because they can no longer feel it. But in some ways, it's a sociopath because of the fact that it was caused by trauma. So
Yeah, is there a possibility to have that, like, kind of a mix of both?
theoretically, yes, um, but it's not common. I would say it is so rare that it's not typically the case. Um, I will say that if you want to have your psychopath be a little like erratic and things like that, you can. They just do tend to be on the calmer side, but that does not mean they can't be erratic. It just means that the psychopath in general struggles to process emotions, which is accurate. Um, um, with that being said, if you have someone who starts out feeling emotions and then feels less emotions, I would say sociopath, purely because of the fact that even though they can feel emotions, it's not that they can't feel emotions, it's that they feel them less. It's that they're dulled. So that's the difference with psychopath. It's that they never felt it from the moment they were born. Whereas with sociopaths, you can have incredibly balanced person who has great emotional control, and then due to some sort of trauma, they just flip a switch and they're batty as a fruitcake. Um, um, so with that being said, um, I would say what you're looking for is a newer sociopath. Just because, as you may have noticed with Azula, she does seem very calm a lot of the time in the beginning. The worse and more traumatized and paranoid she gets, the more erratic she gets. And part of the reason why is because of the fact that even though she is a sociopath, she likes the idea of being liked and being loved, and or rather feared in her case. She likes to think it's liking and loving, but that's not what it is. And so you can have them start out being less erratic and then get gradually more erratic, but as you saw with Azula, eventually they're gonna snap. So with that being said, yeah, I would kind of have them start out like Azula, where they're actually very calm, very calculating, and then they amp up as they go. That's a possibility if you'd like. Yeah, you're welcome. um, with that being said, oftentimes if they do amp up, it is due to, funnily enough, this leads right into the next thing I was going to talk about, is things that remind them of their trauma. And so with that case, because of the fact that Zuko was rejecting her and her dad was saying she wasn't really good enough and all these different things, she's like, I did everything to make you guys like me, and you still don't like me. And so she kind of snapped like a brittle twig. So you could also introduce things like that. So, for example, like with the character who had his whole village killed, if you had another sort of massacre or something like that that they witnessed, that might cause them to snap. They often don't learn from their mistakes because of the fact that they don't often stop to analyze things. You may notice that with Azula as well, is that oftentimes she'll make a mistake and then she'll just be like, it's fine, I'll try again. And it's like, dude, did you not see how that screwed up the first time?